Lord God Almighty, you are worthy to be worshipped and praised. We pour out our hearts to you in this prayer to give thanks to whom you have brought into this world, your Son, Jesus Christ. We have reminded this Christmas season of the most incredible gift of all, Immanuel. God is with us. You took the humble form of a man to be born in a lowly manger, become our Savior, and give us forgiveness of sin and eternal life. This past year has been a crucial year filled with pain, confusion, and loneliness. Many have lost loved ones because of the COVID virus. We pray you would comfort those who are hurting. We are grateful for the hope you have given to us through Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world. When we lack wisdom to overcome life's challenges, Lord, Holy Spirit, may you grant us your presence to lead and guide us to your will. We pray this season of giving and hope would be a season of reconciliation and healing from above. Oh Lord, we believe in you and we love you. Come quickly, Lord Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Walang kasing saya ang Paskong Pinoy. Dumaan man ang problema at pandemya, kayang-kayang lampasan. Basta't nagdadamayan at nagmamahalan.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Tuloy na tuloy pa rin ang Pasko dito sa V81 Radio, Manila.
Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program anchors and producers and do not necessarily reflect the policies and position of this station. Discover the best-kept secrets in metaphysics, law of attraction, science, and spirituality, and listen to practical mystics from around the world. Let's open Pandora's box with Reverend your metaphysical minister, here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source, only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. My name is Reverend and I'm your anchor for Practical Magic. And today we're talking about demonstrating your Christhood and rising above your limitations. As all of you know, here in the show, we talk about, the power and presence of source within you, higher consciousness within you. And we know that this year brought us a lot of experiences that really challenged us to grow and expand our awareness. So today I'm very excited because I have two guests who actually just accomplished those two things, especially with the incredible limitations that this year offered us. But before we proceed with the introduction and meeting them, I just want to invite everyone for a simple affirmation, which I learned from my late teacher, Dr. George Shison. So I invite everyone to simply close your eyes and use your right palm to touch your heart. And together, let's affirm I am a miracle worker creating miracles in my life and in other people's lives. I am a miracle worker creating miracles in my life and in other people's lives. I am a miracle worker creating miracles in my life and in other people's lives. And together, let's chant Satnam 3 times, one for ourselves, the next one for someone we are praying for, and the third for our global village. Take a deep breath in and out. Satnam. 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 Satnam, everyone. It always gives me a good feeling every time we're doing it together, especially, if you're really doing it with a lot of people in a room. So I encourage you, maybe you can do it with your friends or your family if you're, just spending time with them. So now I just want to say hi to all our viewers and Dr. Rose also watching from Bahrain. So let me introduce our first guest, Jennifer Cahill. Actually has appeared on many major news outlets around the world, including KNX Radio, BBC News, ABC, NBC, Fox, and E! News, and has been quoted in numerous online articles as well as including The Ladders and Glassdoor. In addition, Jennifer has been featured speaker for various conferences, law firms, and corporations around the United States. In 2010, Jennifer has opened her own corporate legal or staffing company, J Hill Staffing Services Incorporated, which was acquired by Markham Search LLC in February 2018, where she became the president of the California Search Division until recently transitioning to a consultant role with the company. In 2013, Jennifer published her first book, Stop Hoping, Start Hunting, A Job Seeker's Guide to Finding a Dream Job. She has also since published 2 widely acclaimed white papers focused on transformation in the legal industry, and recently released her second book, 101 Spiritual Tools for Uncertain Times, on Amazon Kindle. In 2019, Jennifer co-founded a business consulting firm, Metaphysics LLC, which offers business consulting services to corporations, leaders, and entrepreneurs. In 2020, Jennifer co-created the Coalition for Global Unity. The coalition offers free weekly meditations from world leaders, teachers, and influencers on Awake TV network at 12 noon every Monday. And she also hosts a weekly radio show on LA Talk Radio called Get Yourself the Job with over 30,000 listeners a month. And she also hosts a TV show on Awake TV network called Conversations for Consciousness, where she recently interviewed Deepak Chopra and Don Hoffman about their new respective books on consciousness. She's also deeply passionate about contributing to her community. She built her first school in Nepal in 2017 by partnering with buildon.org, and recently built her second school in Senegal in November 2019. And to introduce our second guest, Dr. Anita Caprice Powell, and who's also a vibe coach for the spoken word. She's an international spoken word poet, metaphysical counselor, or vibe coach. Vibe coaching with a kiss, keeping it simple, sweetheart. Dr. Anita Caprice is mother of beautiful twin daughters, 2 sons-in-law, and grandmom to precious 5. She is an empowerment speaker and Michigan unemployment appeals advocate, and is also the originator of Vibe and High Collection, an array of metaphysical product, founder of the Tap Into You movement, and author of Reflections of an Angel, book of poetic affirmations. She is the developer of the Tap Into You Treasure Map experience, self-recovery card game, self-recovery card game. She's also the developer of for self-recovery curriculum and other interpersonal spiritual course materials. Her message is all about empowering, inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting others as we spiritual journey together. She does this in her own unique style of spoken word poetry, metaphysical counseling, vibe coaching, teaching, and continuing education and life experience. In her 60s, Anita has reinvented herself with a message, especially for the fabulous plus 40. It's never too late to get to know and start to grow your dream. Anita holds a doctorate in metaphysical science, a certification as a meditation practitioner teacher, transformation life coach, and Reiki master. And she also continues to volunteer her time, talent, and treasure via pro bono advocacy work, coaching and consultation, metaphysical teaching, spoken word artistry, platform speaking, and philanthropy. So, Satnam, Jen, and Dr. Anita, whom I call mom, how are you both doing?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. So, how's the weather right now, Jen, in Lisbon?
It's beautiful and sunny. If I could flip my camera around and show you outside, it's a blue, sunny day, and I can see the river, so I'm very grateful.
Fantastic. And how about you, mom? How is it in Michigan today?
It is beautiful. Right now, it is 7:10. It is a beautiful, beautiful darkness, quiet, peaceful outside. So the sun has not risen yet. So it's just like a wonderful, wonderful, cozy, snuggled up feeling here.
Wow. It's so nice to have both of you here, and merriest Christmas to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you as
Both
well.
of you. Thank you.
So, how is Christmas celebrated in Lisbon? What do they have for community celebrations?
Under normal circumstances, they would have had the farmers markets or the Christmas markets. That's one of my favorite things about being in Europe at this time of year is the beautiful Christmas markets. Though, of course, this year with COVID, there were no Christmas markets, though there were beautiful decorations. So you could see families outside all joining together, and roasted chestnuts are a big thing here. It's a lot of fun. It's just a very magical sort of vibe here.
Wow. Thank you for that, Jen. And how is it for Michigan, mom? What do people do usually?
People now being creative, coming together on Zoom. I know with
Yeah.
me and my family, we get together, keeping our mask on. So my sons-in-law, they're cooks, so they love to cook, So they cook chicken and steak and everything, and then we get
Wow.
together with our, keeping our mask on, and then just show each other's love, and then we take our plates home to eat them when we get home. So the kids, they were able to enjoy their Christmas, and I took their gifts over. So, I think that's mainly, I'm hearing a lot of people saying how they're doing it, the Zoom thing, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm grateful because, I'm just one of those, I want to see my babies. So all of them. If I have to, just give a handshake, although we're going to give a hug, but because we keep our mask on. So that's how we're celebrating. So, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it, continuing to celebrate.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing it because one of my spiritual teachers was actually saying, you can be in the middle of something that's really chaotic and something that can take your joy away, but it's a matter of decision how you're going to find the good in the experience and find something to celebrate. So thank you for sharing those things. And one of the things that I wanted to ask Jen, because I know the first time that I had her on the show, you were talking about her book, 101 Spiritual Tools. But just a couple of weeks later, she came up with her new TV show. And Jen, please share more about your show because it's very much related to the topics we cover here in Practical Magic.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have a show on Awake TV called Conversations for Consciousness. And the idea is that we're talking for consciousness, not about consciousness. What can we do to move the conversation for consciousness forward. I first began dabbling in this subject in January of this year when I was hosting a special with Deepak Chopra and Don Hoffman. And that's now since evolved into season 2 of that series called Conversations at the Intersection of Cutting Edge Spirituality. And I was very inspired by their respective books on consciousness. Deepak, of course, comes from more the metaphysical side of things in his latest book, Total Meditation, and the one prior to that, Metahuman. And then Don Hoffman is a neuroscientist who talks about the case against reality, suggesting what if everything we're all experiencing right now exists only because of consciousness. And what I love about the leaders I get to talk to, aside from Deepak and Don on my own show, is that we're beginning to see for the first time in human history where science and spirituality are beginning to dance with one another. And instead of opposing one another like two opposing magnets, you can see that they're actually getting closer and closer to being aligned. I think that it's going to be an interesting thing. I was reading a book. Did either of you ever see read the book or see the movie called Ready Player One? It came out a few years ago.
No. Yeah, go ahead. Please tell us about it.
Quite fascinating. If you want to read a good book this holiday season, I guarantee you pick up Ready Player One and you will lose your mind. It's such a fascinating book about this virtual reality that people spend most of their lives in. And it's called The Oasis. So in book 1, they talk about that. I just started book 2, and the movie is just spectacularly visually stimulating to watch. And in book 2, they say, what if we go to a place where imagine that we have these headsets and that you could think about ice cream and taste ice cream, or you could think about skiing or surfing and ski or surf. And it's asking a lot of really profound questions, though, for us as human beings. If you're living your whole life in a virtual reality, what's to be said for the real world? Or is all of this a virtual reality and a play on consciousness? So this is where my mind is at right now.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. It's something I look forward to watching myself. And fantastic. And Mom, I know that during this lockdown, it's pretty amazing that you were a recipient of an award, something to do with your advocacy. Please tell us more about it.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. And before we get, I just want to get Jennifer, may I have your book, the title of your book, please?
101 Spiritual Tools for Uncertain Times.
Okay. I want to get that book. Thank you so much.
You're so sweet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I'm so honored and blessed. I was nominated for Social Activist Award 2020 by the Women of Heart Association in London. And subsequent to the nomination, I was awarded, I was granted that. So this is just absolutely amazing. I'm honored by it. It's one of those, the person that nominated me, I shared with her, I said, I kind of feel a little funny about that. I said, because I don't see myself as an activist per se. And then I thought about it, and I even included it because we have to do a Zoom acceptance presentation. And I had shared, I thought of, praying on it. I said, you know what? One of the things, as far as going within, learning ourselves, but one of the things, if you really want to know about yourself, you go ask somebody else, because often people can see in you what you don't see for yourself consciously, because of course it's all in there, in the spiritual, but consciously. And it's just an amazing thing. I'm just humbled and just feel so blessed by it.
Thank you for sharing it, Mom, because I know that you're actually one of those people who's so easy to relate with. And at the same time, you make everybody feel that they're welcome. Even if it was just a virtual welcome to the Tap Into You movement, I always felt it was like a family atmosphere. Okay. And I think, right now, it's such an important thing, a culture to cultivate, even if it's done online, where we all want to feel that we're welcome and there's warmth in our virtual community, especially from around the globe. I talk to people who are really having a difficult time emotionally and mentally, especially trying to hold it together, keeping up with the demands of the material plane or the third plane pressures.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
that's one of the 10 bodies. You know, innately, we all have an innate desire and longing to belong. That's
yeah,
why a lot of us, you know, when the Tap Into You movement, that's why it's so important. Because for me, when people experience the ideation, the attempt, and even the actual of suicide, to me, that's telling me there is a separateness. And just just like our sexual urges, those things are innate, wanting to belong, and that is one of the 10 bodies, and that's of the negative mind. And
yeah,
if when we experience, because we want to belong so much, that is such a strong desire, even I'm going to say beyond the word desire, that is such a oneness within us that will turn to various different, even destructive means and ways just so that we can belong. That's very,
yes,
very, 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 very important. I don't know how important we actually take that. You know, we might pass along when people are depressed or people are feeling lonely. It's so much, 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 much deeper than that.
yes. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing it, Mom. I know it's very important as well. I know that one of your advocacies is to help people to get over their mental and emotional limitations. And I know that you're a big advocate for raising people's awareness about asking for help, especially if they're on the verge of wanting to commit suicide. So please give us some information about it.
As far as the Tap Into You, see the Tap Into You movement, it's very close to me because of my experiences. Even as the peak of it, the summit was when I reached 16, the age of 16, um, and that carried on. But all about the Tap Into You movement is all about living life from the inside out. And you know, and I one thing that I did when I saw that the subject was Christ consciousness, Spirit led me. I said, what better way to to contribute or to be a part of this excellent, excellent sharing of dialogue is to read about Christ and his teachings. You know, so that's what I've been doing. You know, once you invited me, my son, once you know, once you blessed me with this
Yeah.
opportunity. And one thing I noticed that one of Christ's teachings, Yeshua, the teaching, the main thing I noticed that every time when there was a healing, every time without fail, when there was a healing, he mentioned believing in the healing. So it
Mm.
was that thing that it's like Yeshua says, yes, I am here to heal, but it's like physician, heal thyself. And I even read that in the Bible. I read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation in other holy books. You know what I mean? I don't remember reading that part, you know? So I was reading that and I said, wow, you know, physician, heal thyself. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I said, okay, Yeshua, you're sharing your teaching is we heal ourselves. He's teaching us. We're the conduit. So the Tap Into You is tap. We tap into the beyond the soul, because you know the soul is so attached to the human personality. We tap into that spirit of us, which is unaffected by all this stuff, and that's where all the answers are. You know what I mean? So for me, that's what I got. Then I said, I got it. But that amazed me when I picked that up in reading this time. I'm like, every single time this thing was believing. The first requisite was believing in yourself, and then after Yeshua did the heal, the I'm going to say the healing, and then the healing occurred. So what was the first thing? Faith.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just think that's amazing.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Mom. Because I know with Tap Into You, it's so important as well for one to have that belief in themselves, that confidence, in oneself. And I also want to make a segue because, Jennifer, I didn't realize that one of the things that motivated her to finish her book 101 Spiritual Tools for Uncertain Times was overcoming her own health limitation, especially during this pandemic. And I was pretty amazed when I watched the interview because I was reading the 101 Spiritual Tools for Uncertain Times, and I was really focused on the forgiveness and then having to ask how does it get any better than this? So when I watched your interview with Amanda Masters in Awake TV and then found out that you had experienced COVID-19, it was so amazing. I was raving about it, Jen, when I was watching it because I didn't realize, oh my God, she was doing all this coalition for global unity interviews and helping a lot of people get their message out there while Jen was overcoming her own health limitations. So I want to invite everyone, that's really insane. That was phenomenal. So Jen, please take over. Share us what your inspiration was during that time. Especially, Mom was just talking about having faith in oneself and one's healing.
Thank you so much. And Anita, I loved what you just shared about having faith in yourself. Before I address that, Reverend, I would just love to acknowledge, Mom, as you call her, Anita, because I've struggled with depression myself. And, it's very easy. It would have been very easy for me to have fallen down a proverbial depressed rabbit hole. Number one, being by myself in London. Number two, getting terribly ill. My parents were terrified, and so they started Skyping me every day. It was very cute because they knew I was all alone there. And it actually turned into the best part of this whole year is every single day now, I talk to my parents for anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes via Skype, and that all was birthed out of me being terribly ill and my parents being worried about me. And it's about certainty. To tie in what Mom/Anita just said, the power of certainty is really incredible. One of my spiritual teachers, David Guillaume, was saying, if you could imagine asking for God for one thing every day, praying to Christ, praying to God, it would be to have certainty that everything is being worked out for your highest and best good. And so that's why I was motivated to write the book at the time, is because at that time, there were points where I was hallucinating. I mean, thankfully, I'm going to do a huge shout out right now for a friend of mine. Dr. Jeannie Elmstrom is somebody I began working with in the United States about 7 or 8 years ago. And she is a metaphysical healer. She does body healing remotely. So I'm very deeply, deeply grateful that as bad as it was when I was terribly, terribly ill, I had Jeannie in my corner. She was doing work on me from afar. I was doing work on myself, and I just didn't want to cause harm to anybody else. So it was an opportunity to talk to it. Whenever we have pain, I was talking to a friend of mine who's having inner ear issues and vertigo. And I said, well, have you talked to your ear? And, she was laughing. She knows Louise Hay. I was like, oh, well, have you looked up Louise Hay and what that would say? And she's like, well, actually, I knew Louise. We were good friends. And she's like, you're right. And so anytime that we have any sort of pain, whether it's from an illness or physiological pain or psychological or emotional pain, the first thing that I personally do is when I have the wherewithal, that's the important thing, is to be able to bring that consciousness and that awareness to it, and then to begin to talk to the pain, journal with the pain, pray about the pain, ask God, ask that part of your body, what are you trying to tell me? What is the reason that you're showing up in my life? And to take it back to Anita's perspective, have a belief that you can be healed and that you can see yourself as whole, complete, and perfect. And I think, quite frankly, this is just an opinion, the reason we're still fighting, and I literally mean fighting emotionally, psychologically, physically with COVID, is because we don't see ourselves as whole and we don't see the world as whole. So until 7 billion people can look at themselves as whole, then we can eradicate everything, COVID or otherwise. But it begins by seeing ourselves as whole and then reflecting that out into the world.
That's
Yes.
beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you for sharing it, because right now there's actually some cause for panic for some Filipinos because they're talking about a different variation of this COVID-19 or something that they're saying is more potent. But I like it that you're bringing up the topic that if we see ourselves as whole and complete, then we're going to start that healing process. So
Yeah.
To you, Jen, I know it's very difficult to write a book and concentrate. When you're going through something biologically. So, how is it like? What's the experience like? Of course, you're trying to concentrate, but then there's that feeling of maybe wanting to rest or feeling uneasy about it.
Well, if I can give advice to anybody out there who's considering writing a book, it's this. Ask God if you have permission to write that day. That was literally, I wrote the whole book in the period of about 5 whole days. And every day, as part of my meditation and my prayer practice, at the end, I would say, God, would you like me to write today? And God would say yes, or God would say no. And if I had the green light, I would sit down and I had nothing to do with it. I literally didn't. I go back and I reread anything I've ever written. I'm like, I didn't write that. Who wrote that? That has But I go back and I reread it and I acknowledge 100% it always comes from source. And it's funny, one of the things that my teacher, Michael Beckwith from Agape, who I love and adore, taught me to do is to ask God every day, God, what is my assignment for today? And sometimes, even now, like I'll get an assignment and God will say, write. And I'll be like, write what? Do you want me to work on book 2? What would you like me to work on? And, that's a cool thing, though. When you're in the flow with the universe, no matter how sick or crappy you feel, it's about tuning into the flow of what would be in the flow for you that day and not pushing yourself to not do something that's in the flow. And I admire people who force themselves to write every day. That's just not the style that I embodied.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think that's the reason why it's very relatable. Because one of the things that I used extensively in Jen's book are 3 parts of the book: being grateful, forgiveness part, and then how does it get any better than this? And after that, how does it get any better than this? I just want to share a quick story. I have this practice I learned from another spiritual teacher, and she was saying, whatever income you get, first you give to God's work of your treasure, and then the next one is you give to yourself, and then the third one is everybody else. So I was practicing the second part of giving to myself. So I went to this favorite restaurant of mine so that I can give to myself the comfort food that I was craving at that time. Because at that time, they just opened up restaurants here in the Philippines. And I was telling myself, God, how does it get any better than this? Because I'm having so much fun with the forgiveness part, being grateful, and then constantly asking, how does it get any better than this? Because I find that there's such a lift in that question. There's an expansion of your awareness that you never really get if you don't ask yourself questions like that, because you're already used to certain line of thinking. But the moment you ask yourself something like that, something opens up. So interestingly enough, I go to this restaurant, I ask for my comfort food, and then they serve it. And then I was pretty disappointed because it wasn't exactly what I had in mind. There was something in my chicken that wasn't very pleasing to me. So I called the manager because I used to blog for food and would take on mystery shopping assignments every now and then for fine dining restaurants. So I know I had every reason to write a negative review of the restaurant, but I told myself I don't want to do something like that because sometimes the business owners, they take the brunt of that experience, but sometimes it's just the staff are so tired they overlook that thing. So anyway, I talked to the manager, and then she apologizes. So a few minutes later, I was asking myself, I just asked the question, how does it get any better than this? So why does this incident happen to me? So anyway, the manager comes back, serves me the same comfort food that I want, but this time everything's new. So there's no, she replaces my disappointment with something that's really delightful, and then serves me something else that was really out of my expectations. So instead of paying $7 for that meal, instead of paying $14 for that meal, I only paid $7. So, it's been my practice now to really ask myself constantly, especially when I'm feeling limited by the circumstance, how does it get any better than this? It's really powerful. So thank you for writing it that way, Jen, because now I realize what you were saying, that you always ask for intuitive guidance with writing your book. So it's very powerful and it's really helpful. And Mom, I know the same thing for you. With your tap into you movement, especially uh, you did something before you dip into my mind, dip into my purse. It's one of my personal favorites. I listen to every Saturday. So, what was the inspiration behind it?
Um, the inspiration behind dipping into before you dip, sure. First of all, Jennifer, I want to say very profound, if I may just digress a little bit, very profound message what you just said. I want to thank you so much. When you were speaking and saying how if we all got together, the first thing I thought of was, wow, that saying Beatles, Paul McCartney, let there be peace and let it begin with me. That's the same kind of thing. And then I thought of, like, Reverend Red, you saying people in the Philippines are getting a little antsy. I think of Job. The thing that I feared has come upon me. If we can really put into our mind consciously that, okay, just like I share with my daughters, I said, listen, I mean, you putting that prayer out there, and when I advocate, when I help claimants with their unemployment, and they'll say, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? The judge doesn't rule in my favor. I said, well, we might as well stop the consultation right now. I said, if that is your belief, then we might as well not go any further, because what we're doing is going against the grain. And then you being in the flow. I'm a vibration I'm a numerologist. I am a vibration equation specialist. I've been doing it since the 80s. Just like today, I did our vibe for today, the universal vibe. I'm a vibe girl, Jen.
I'm a vibe too.
Yeah. So when you were there going to the flow, I said, I know that's why. I said, that's like my cup, learning to let go, trust in the flow, positive attract. So I just wanted to share that when you said your vision, when you said I asked God. One time during meditation, the Spirit shared with me, there's a difference between visualization and vision. I didn't know that visualization is what the things that we want. Vision is what God has for us. So when you said, okay, God, what do I write today? I said, look at her. She's saying, okay, what's the vision of God? So I just love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dipping before you dip into it. That's one of those. It's with music because I'm an aspiring musician. I want to put music to my poetry and in other things. I'm creating like a CD, a special CD thing. Dip into my mind is basically it's a mature woman in her 60s who says she is sexy. She done came into her own. She ain't for the games no more. So dipping before you dip into, and it's a metaphor, before you dip into my mind and other things, you better be sure.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Fantastic.
All those life lessons, dealing with that drama and all that kind of stuff. And now it's like,
Yeah. See, Mom, this is the reason why I love having you around, because you can literally light up the room easily. In a snap of a finger, you just bring so much joy to the space. So anyway, we'll pause for a short commercial and we'll be back again for Practical Magic.
We'll be back shortly. This is Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Connected ka na ba para laging updated sa mga bagong shows, promos, trending news, viral videos, events, o patok na OPM hits? Just follow us on Facebook at V81 Radio Manila. Simple lang, itype lang ang letter V81 Radio Manila. O, di ba madali lang? Kaya i-like at i-follow na. Want to see who will bring home the win? Get ready for Napalm Music Awards. Now back to Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. My name is Reverend, and I'm back again for Practical Magic. And we have Jennifer Hill and Dr. Anita Caprice. So we're having this conversation about demonstrating your Christhood and rising above your limitations. So you were just talking about Jen's book, 101 Spiritual Tools for Uncertain Times, and Dr. Anita's Before You Dip Into My Mind, you better dip into my purse. And you know what inspired both of them to actually accomplish the amazing things that they were able to accomplish during this period of lockdown, pandemic, and many other things that really challenged all of us. And it's really remarkable when we're able to create something out of situations that can really test our patience and our faith, as Dr. Anita was saying. And please expand on what Job was saying, the difference of faithing and fearing and attracting what you have faith in and what you also fear happening into your life. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, what I was saying was in the book of Job, the story about Job, he was a wealthy man that had daughters and sons and cattle, and he's sheep and a farmer, or I'm just use a farmer for lack of better word, because I don't know all the biblical, terms and everything. But he was a very wealthy man, and it came upon where God had a conversation with the devil, and for me, and that's just my own interpretation of it, that everything is symbolic and within. So to me, that God is our higher consciousness, and that devil is just part of our perfect little pretty ego, precious ego that can get out of control. And there was a conversation that he had, that the devil had said to God, said, if you keep, if you let me bring all this calamity upon Job, at some point he's going to curse you. And then God said, okay, well, I'm going to let you go ahead. And again, to me, this is the conversation with our, that angel on our shoulders saying, okay, this and that. And it takes me to when I left 19 years of work, of tenure on a wing and a prayer, that those angels, like, you're crazy. I got to do it. You're crazy. So anyway, so with the book of Job, so then all of these calamities came, and Job started fearing, like, I would hate. The cattle left, and then his friends would come see, I told you, well, then you need to do this, or maybe there's something that you're not doing right. You brought this in our mind. You brought this on yourself. Karma is what they say. Karma is a bee, and all that kind of stuff. So then he's thinking of these things, and then the next thing, his daughters, which represent the feminine energy, so then they made their transition. I believe he had sons, the masculine, yin yang, masculine, feminine. So then they made their transition, and then it came to a point that even his wife, that Bina, that creative energy, said, see, why don't you just go ahead and curse God, so that you can get all this stuff back and do this stuff. And it's all in our heads, this spiritual war, that not soulful war, I'm going to say, in our head. And then eventually what happened was Job got to a point, and he said, the thing that I have feared has come upon me. In other words, the things that I thought about first happened, manifested in my life. And then once he realized that, that this is what happened, things started coming back. So in other words, he lost a lot of stuff, but he gained sevenfold. But the thing that he recognized was that the thing that I feared, in other words, I feared it. And like Jennifer, Jim, when you were saying our consciousness, the thing that we met, whatever is out here came from in here first. Anyway, so that was to me, that's my interpretation of the book of Job.
Yes. Thank you for sharing it, Mom. It's really amazing because it's one of the things that I think, Jen, you also mentioned it during your guesting, something about Job, a similar story. I'm not sure if you remember it, but having to overcome the limitations that he had to deal with at that time. Would you like to share some insight?
Yeah, well, it's funny. What it made me think of, Reverend, is of course I love the story of Job because it's so easy to want to curse people or blame our circumstances or God, for what it is. Although what I remember, Reverend, I think you had Stephen Simon on the show, right? The guy who wrote What Dreams Do Come. Did you have him?
Yeah, I had him for putting things in perspective. And I remember in passing, you mentioned it very briefly during the first interview. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because something Stephen Simon said that I love that ties into the Job story is Stephen Simon said that, it's like before we incarnate, imagine our soul is out there, it's floating around in endless bliss, and then boom, we decide we want to incarnate. So before we incarnate, we set up the racetrack and all of the hurdles and obstacles we're going to go along in our life. So we're sitting there carefully placing, like, okay, I want this one at 7 feet high. Okay, I want some quicksand right about here. Okay, I'd like some flood. I'd love for everything to just kind of flood, so I have to swim and feel like I'm not going to survive it. And so you imagine that you're creating this racetrack with everything that your soul needs for your soul's evolution down here in Soul School. And then we arrive down here in Soul School and we're like, what jerk set up this, But we don't realize it's a gift. So just like Job realized, it's a gift. This too is for the good. I don't know how, but I am certain that this too is for the good. And it ties into that story, Reverend. Did I ever share with you the story of the king and the farmer? Did you hear that story?
Not yet.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. It's some famous celebrity shared it this year, and it was relayed to me by a friend. So once upon a time, there was a king and a farmer. And from when they were young boys, they were the bestest of friends. They would go fish together. They'd jump off of trees together. They'd go run and play together. And as they grew older, they began to go hunting together. And they just were like two peas in a pod. However, no matter what happened, if they got lost after dark or if something scary happened, the farmer would always say to the king, "Don't worry, king, this is for the good." So this goes on and on as they become young adults and young men now. They're out hunting one day in the forest. And the king goes to shoot a deer and he pulls up his rifle, he aims and boom, right as he shoots, his right thumb gets blown right off of his hand. And he's screaming in agony. He's like, "This is terrible. This is awful." And of course, his friend, the young farmer, is right there next to him. And he says, "Don't worry, king. This is for the good." At that moment, the king loses it. He's like, "How dare you? We've been friends our whole lives. I am sick and tired of this. This cannot be for the good. My thumb is missing. It's bleeding. There's no way this is for the good." Guards, take him away. Take him away and put him in the dankest, worst part of the dungeon. And I want you to lock him up there and I never want to see him again. And that's how it is. And so a year goes by and the king has all but forgotten about his friend in the dungeon because he's still harboring that grudge and that anger. And one day he's out hunting in a new part of the forest. And this time, cannibals come upon himself and his guards. And the cannibals immediately kill the guards. And they see the king in his regal attire. And they decide, oh, this is a prize meal. We are going to roast him tonight, and he will be our special treat. So as they go to undress the king and take off his gloves, they find that he is missing his right thumb. And the cannibal who's preparing him screams and says, "Oh, this is terrible. We can't possibly eat you. We only eat whole foods. You're cursed. You must leave our house immediately. This is terrible. We don't want your bad luck." So the king is now running back to the castle, buck naked, and crying and just like, "Oh my God, I need to go save my friend in the dungeon." So he arrives back, a guard throws a wrap over him. He says, "Take me to the dungeon, take me to my friend the farmer." He gets down to the dungeon. His friend is emaciated, covered in mud and dirt, has barely been fed over the last year. And he says, "My friend, my dear, my oldest friend, please, you must forgive me. Remember last year when my thumb was blown off and you said it was for the good. I didn't believe you, but it turned out you were right. You see, today when I was hunting, the cannibals didn't eat me because I was missing my right thumb. Could you ever forgive me?" And the farmer looks at him and he says, "Don't worry, king. It was for the good." And the king's like, what? How could you say this is for the good? You've been in the dungeon for the past year. He said, because, king, if not, I would have been with you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, fantastic.
That story. That's my
Amazing.
favorite
Awesome.
story.
Awesome.
We never know if something's for the good. That's the
I know. Oh, that is
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm
Thank you.
remembering that one.
Thank you for letting me
Wow.
hear it. It's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, it's really fantastic, and I'm just gonna remove this and clean it up later. So anyway, it's for the good. It's you know. So anyway, I'm very excited about all the stuff that both of you were able to accomplish this year. Especially, we have 4 days to go in the Philippines before December 2020 ends, and before I had Practical Magic, I used to host this show in Wow Very Good Live channel called Goals with Reverend Red Show. And this year has become very interesting because a year before this, some of my clients and I were really goal setting and thinking of what we were planning for the whole year. So obviously, a lot of the things that we planned the year before really went through enormous twists and turns. And a lot of us who have been consistently communicating, we know that whatever happened this year, it opened so many doors, opened a lot of opportunities to meet new people and realize that, even if we think we're pushing ourselves locally,
Mhm.
with all the Zoom meetings that are happening, we were able to meet interesting people, people who also want to elevate themselves, just like what I'm experiencing now with both of you and your amazing storytelling. Uh,
I love
so
that
thank you for
story.
that.
I love
Yeah.
that. And I want to thank you, Jennifer, because um, that was a confirmation on Christmas. I received news that was kind of disappointing to me. It's something that I was fearful to do, but yet I wanted to do it because I knew it would be a wonderful, opportunity. So by you saying it was for the good, and in my mind I was thinking, well, everything is in divine proportion and time and order. So I know, but still, in my mind, I know this, but in my mind I'm saying, yeah, but I'm still disappointed. So thank you, my sister.
Mwah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, honestly, I know that although both of you have already achieved a lot, especially towards this last quarter of the year, or maybe 2 quarters before the year ends. Sorry, I'm very calculating. Do it so much with calculating time, and even with our nutrition coaching, we have to calculate. So that's why I'm very into measurement so much. So anyway, I also noticed, Jen, that in your bio, I was reading it, in the past you also have done something not just for yourself but also reaching out to someone who was very ill, and you actually had your head shaved at that time for someone. So tell us more about it. I think that was really amazing of you to do it.
Oh, thank you so much. What's funny, being here with you, Anita, I'm like tempted to go back because you look so fabulous and you are just rocking it. So
Thank you, my sister.
yeah, you don't know when you go bald. At least I didn't. So there was a young boy named Tyler Cordova, and I realized very early on that in lieu of a birthday party every other year, I wanted to throw a party for charity to help raise awareness around kids, education, and cancer. And so this all culminated one year in my partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And we threw, there was a young boy that year named Tyler Cordova, who was about 7 years old, and 6 of the 7 years of his life, he had been fighting cancer. And when we started off this event, it was to honor him because he had overcome and he was in remission. And then in the middle of all of this, when we were fundraising for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and he was like the poster boy of it that year, he got cancer again, and your heart just aches. I mean, here you have this 7-year-old kid, and he's had the most beautiful spirit. And so we decided, when you're a kid, imagine how awkward it must be to be bald, and then, you don't look the same perhaps as the other kids, and he had to have a stint too. And so all this happened, and so we said, what if we shaved our heads in honor of him? So we actually got a local radio station, K-Rock, involved in Los Angeles. We got about 400 or 500 people together. We had bands come from all over and play. And myself and 10 other people shaved our heads in honor of Tyler while he was there. And it was one of my favorite moments of my entire life because Tyler is now a healthy young 18-year-old man going to
Wow.
He is
Wow.
wonderful. My favorite part, ladies, is that he prefers to be bald. He said that day when the 10 of us shaved our heads in honor of him, he realized it was cool to be bald and he never felt ashamed of it again. And so I just am so deeply grateful to have been able to contribute in that way.
That is
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing it. It's really amazing. Yeah. And it's just amazing how you made him feel because the moment that he lost that feeling of shame, I'm very sure that it did help contribute to his healing. And when someone goes through the same thing again with the same type of disease in the body, something must have triggered it, and it might have been triggered by shame. We don't know. So thank you for doing it, and it really lights me up, Jen, when I see you and your friend Brandon in LA Talk Radio, with your show, because both of you are trying to help people step up their game, and not just on the head level of awareness, but really coming into the space where people are more compassionate towards others. And that's something that I love about your show and the theme of your books, really going out of your way to empower yourself, but at the same time not losing your awareness of what other people need from you that you might also have in the moment. That's really remarkable. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you so much, Fred. I do want to acknowledge something Anita said earlier. For anybody out there who might be struggling with depression, I've gone through that myself, and I have only shared this a handful of times, but I was suicidal between the ages of 18 or 16, actually, and 20. And for anybody out there who might be feeling like you're alone, there are two things that can kind of slowly help. One is to always try to help somebody else. That's the thing that I think has helped me I still go through moments sometimes of depression or a day or two of it. Though the thing that really helps me the most is doing and having kindness to somebody else. If you know anybody out there who's struggling, if you're struggling yourself, find a way to be of service. When we can be of service for other people, it really helps. And the second thing is, even yesterday, I was going through a little bit of a sad time. A dear friend of mine passed away unexpectedly 2 weeks ago. And so I've been having moments of deep sadness. And one thing I do is I immediately stop what I'm doing and I list 100 things I'm grateful for. So no matter what happens, it's like if in that moment, even if it takes me an hour to write it down or 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. It's about being grateful.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jen. That's really powerful. And at the same time, I know it takes a lot of effort to write it down. And like you said, you might have 10 minutes or an hour to actually do it. And this is also the reason why I encourage everyone to be in the space where they're so empowered and they have a positive attitude towards, fending for yourself, having your own income. Because let's be honest, you don't really have the luxury of time to actually have 10 minutes or an extra hour to yourself if you're not self-sufficient in some way, or you just have money lying around. For some people, their every hour counts for work. So there has to be some form of shift that's going to happen for you. And before Practical Magic, I've always been an advocate for people to do what they love to do and to find a way to support themselves in another way. Because one of the things that my family has been pounding on me ever since was, if you do the thing that you love to do, you also have to think about the money aspect of it. Because the reason why you're also able to do kind things for people, shave your head and have the right connections, you having the radio thing, my family always makes me realize that all those things, it's easy for you to do because in one way or another, you're not thinking about where are you going to get the money to pay the bills, because that's no longer your preoccupation. So, and I'm sharing that because in the beginning of the show, I talked about the affirmation I learned from my late teacher, Dr. George Sheason. And he has the simple prayer he taught us. And he was saying, I am a miracle worker, creating miracles in my life and in other people's lives. I am a miracle worker, creating miracles in my life and in other people's lives. And many times in his temple, he calls his temple the temple of prayer, peace, and prosperity. he always wanted his students to realize that, okay, do what you love to do, but have a positive attitude towards money, because it's not easy to make miracles in your life and then extend it to others if that's something that's consuming your energy daily. So, mom, what can you say about it? Because I'm sure that your kids, they also had to go through that phase where they're thinking, if am I gonna do something because I love it, or am I gonna get into this because I have to make money to support myself? What can you say about it?
Well, with my children, I was just speaking with a friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, last night. Um, when my daughters, I have twins, and they are my chickadees. They are my life, as well as my sons-in-law and my grandchildren. However, being a single parent, there are different cultures as well. I mean, we can say the principles of different things. However, there are certain dynamics and variables when it comes to different environment, social economic situations, and different things like that. So um, that has to come into play. However, with my children, my prayer when my daughters were born on 6:08 and 6:10 in the morning, at that point, my prayer to God was that they finish high school, they finish college, they get a career, then they marry their best friend, and then they have children. And to this day, my daughters, I'm not going to say what age, well, let me just say I am 64. My daughters are grown and they have children. And to this day, when I am in the moment of prayer after meditation or whatever, to this day, it still brings me tears of gratitude when I am saying thank you to our Father, Mother God, that that prayer was was done. It was done in that order. So as far as loving, I mean, loving what you do. First, we have to learn what is it that we love, what we do, because a lot of things, what we do, just like earlier when I said the visualization and the vision, a lot of things, just like our thoughts, a lot of our thoughts come from outside sources, what we've read, and we've come to believe them as our own. So I'm an advocate of, that's why the tap into you is important to me too, is that it's one of those, okay, it's we have got to go inside, talking about the consciousness of Christ being the theme of this show. Yeshua said, well, before you do anything, seek the counsel of God and the righteousness. To me, seek the kingdom. The kingdom to me is the counsel, seeking the wisdom of the creator. And then he said, once you reach the counsel and the kingdom, how you do it is to go inside. So I think it's very important. That's like my tap into your treasure map with the piece of paper and crayons. It's not to extract anything because we're external data driven. Everything, everything comes from outside of us. So the tap into you movement, the sheet program that's been created, everything derives from tapping into having the discipline, the discipline and the love, not only for ourselves, like self-confidence, but the love in the spirit of the creator, of the Father, Mother God that's within us, to tap into that and then trust it. Just like again, like the and this is my mantra. I'm telling you, my vibe and high. Learning to let go, trusting the flow, learning to let it go, trusting the flow, and then knowing that positive is going to attract. So there's no need, because Dr. Paul Masters in the theocentric psychology course, he says that a lot of our experiences and what we experience as far as our consciousness is derived from intellectual evaluation. Intellectual evaluation comes from extra things that we read, things that we brought inside of, bring in, to us. Theocentric psychology is starting from inside and then going out. That's why my motto is learn to live life from the inside out. Sometimes we got to rest everything out here so that we can learn to know, okay, what is my original thought? What is my relationship with the creator? What is my intimacy with the universe? And you cannot get that out there. We can only get it from going inside.
Yes. Thank you for sharing it, Mom. And we'll talk more about it later. For now, we'll pause for a short commercial.
Sorry, I hope I didn't talk.
We'll be back shortly. This is Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Are you ready to explore a new kind of music? Yung bang kakaiba na hindi mo pa napapakinggan? Mga bagong artist. Nagugulat sa inyo sa kanilang awit at tugtugan. Discover them, hear them in Napalm Hour. Ang Napalm ay ang new all-Pinoy alternative music source na para sa kakaibang musika. Alternative artists and bands all the time. Catch them at Napalm Hour. Mondays through Fridays, 12 noon to 1 p.m. and 8 to 9 p.m. Streaming live on V81 Radio mobile app. Kaya i-download mo na for free. Now na! Coming soon on Napalm Season 3. If you rock with them, we're gonna roll them. Get ready for Napalm Music Awards because your new all-Pinoy alternative music source is about to bring the house down. Abangan at tumutok lang tuwing Sunday, 1 p.m. dito sa Napalm para sa mga updates. Dito lang yan sa V81 Radio, Manila. Now back to Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. My name is Reverend and I'm here again for Practical Magic. And right now, I have Jennifer Hill and also Dr. Anita Caprice, and we're talking about demonstrating your Christhood and rising above your limitations. And Dr. Anita was talking about going within so that you can also demonstrate your desires. And particularly earlier, I was talking about miracles and being the miracle actually that you'd like to demonstrate in the world. Especially, we're talking about the Christ consciousness. And as we all know, we identify with Christ because of the multitude of miracles that he was able to demonstrate in his own life. And that's why he has a lot of followers in this space, especially in my country. When you talk about Jesus the Christ, then a lot of people are actually advocates of Jesus and what my mom calls him Yeshua, and the going within aspect. So, you know, Mom, I want to share something. I'm not sure if you've read Dr. Catherine Ponder's book, and she wrote the book, The Millionaire from Nazareth. And in that book, she was talking about Jesus and how remarkable he was in terms of letting the multitudes of people find out that God is within, and that if you discover that God is within and that source is within you, you'll really have a miraculous life. But in the first place, what Jesus wanted to get across to people is that once you realize that God is within you, this should actually be your normal. Thriving should be your normal. You shouldn't have any problem with money, with health, or any other things that you actually would like to demonstrate in your own life. So please share your thoughts on it.
Me? Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I totally agree with that. You know, I have recently, I'm going to say recently, as far as prayer, I'm really, really on my journey now that my prayer is, you know, thy will be done. I pray to hear thy will and then have the courage to do thy will. Dr. Miles Monroe in a YouTube, he was saying how he said every day, ask God to define, refine, refresh, reveal what your gift is, because we all have that talent, that special gift. And once we refine it, and what he's saying is, you know, trust in the universe, however higher source, the divine source, trust in that and ask that things be revealed. And once we do that, I was your people. I said, it could be, people can say that I'm lazy, but at this point in my life, I'm learning. I don't, uh, I don't, I don't necessarily need to know how, because the universe has shared with me when I had decided that I wanted to travel to do my spoken word or travel with my wellness consultation or whatever, especially when with my spoken word. I just said, I just made the prayer, I want to travel with spoken word. I did not say, because me putting it in my consciousness, I would have said, okay, I'd like to go to California. I'd like to go to New York and Hollywood. I didn't do that. My first trip in traveling with my spoken word was Thailand. That was the universe. I let it go. I let it go. I did not plan anything. I did not limit the universe to say, hey, this is what I want to do. And I didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't know what I was doing. Like that, it's all in good. It was only till later when this year I traveled to Egypt and did
Yeah,
spoken
I
word.
remember that.
That's when it dawned on me and said, because I've never been growing up, people say goal, set your goals, write your goals, write your goals. And I would do that. Well, what happened, that took a serious major hit on my self-esteem because I never could complete my goals. So I thought I was a failure for years. I mean, I've had so many businesses that failed, this and that, because I'm doing, doing this and doing that, doing this, doing that, what I think I'm supposed to do. So I failed. And then it was not until after my 50s, that dipping into, hey, I'm coming into my own. I'm learning to, hey, all I want to do is hear the sound of the universe, which I know it comes in my own voice, but I know I have to learn how to discern and distinguish. But it was at that time that I'm realizing that some people are goal setters. You set your goals, and some people are intention seers. I didn't know I'm an intention seer. Some people see the end result and said, I'm gonna leave the rest to the universe how I get there. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and so again, they're just different types of hows, and I believe that's a gift that the creator gave us too, the gift of goal setting, and then there's the gift of intention setting. So both are both correct. It just depends on your makeup and your relationship. Like what you said, Jim, before we came on this planet, we said, okay, all right, universe, we seeing eye to eye. I know what my soul has put before me for its evolution, because everything that we do is for our soul. Our soul says, hey, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this. The depression and the different things like that, even just different things. Because I know I had learned just going and growing up, there are certain things that was experienced, and that I took a class in the spiritual community that I'm in. It was Colin James, I forget his name, but it's Radical Forgiveness. And in that class, it hit just the class and doing it hit me all the things that was experienced. I said, my soul is a bad mama jamma. I said, because if girlfriend needed to do this, to go to experience that soul elevation and evolution, then there's some great work that's to be done, and that made me feel good. So I'm more of, hey, you know what? My thing right now is showing people that let go, learn to let go, learn to let go, learn to live more from the heart than from the head.
Yeah.
You know what I
Thank you
mean?
for yeah. Uh, Thank you for sharing it, Mom. And maybe later you can show us how you actually distinguish, because it's amazing what you said about distinguishing whatever it is that you need to filter so that you can hear your own voice. And I know Jen also has a lot to share, especially she's built her own company and then sold it as well. So, Jen, I want to ask, how do you actually do it? Because in as far as University of Metaphysics is concerned, one of the things that Dr. Masters teaches us is this. You have to have a positive attitude about money. And at the same time, one of the things that he was also emphasizing to us, which I like very much about the bachelor's program, was that he was saying, I hear so many people who are walking encyclopedias of esoteric terms or mysticism, but they haven't really demonstrated in their own lives what it really means to, display their Christhood or their oneness with God. And I know that if Dr. Masters was alive and he knows that I'm interviewing you right now, Jen, he'd be very happy to hear about your results and the way you balance your spiritual and material aspects. Please share to us more about it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reverend. And I loved what you shared too, Anita. It's all just ties together. We all say the same thing, just in a way that people can hear it. That's what's really important, is giving people the ability to hear it in a way that they're available to receive it, because sometimes people just have to hear it said a different way. And so this is very exciting. We have somebody knocking at the door, which is very exciting. So I'm going to turn it over to Anita for one moment while I double check.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is, but go ahead and continue sharing, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Thank
Okay. Yes.
Mom,
Yes.
yes, thank you for sharing it, Mom, because it's amazing what you mentioned about, going within and really finding out if you're a goal setter or an intention seeing person. Is that what you mean? Please correct me if I'm wrong, if I didn't get it right. But I think one of the reasons why both of us work very well is because we complement each other. I'm a planner and you're more intuitive when it comes to these things. I have my own way of reaching into my heart very deeply, and I know you have yours. So maybe I can learn a thing or two from you. So please go ahead and take over.
Oh, well, just living, and I'm learning what I'm learning since my spiritual name. I'm learning that, and this is new. I'm learning about the 10 bodies. I know I already know about the chakras, and I practice that in what I do in my daily living. As far as knowing who we are, one thing that the inmates, when I worked at the Michigan Department of Corrections for 4 years, I worked in the prison. And that was another knowing thing or learning that I didn't realize 2 years later, is that when I would talk with the inmates, each and every one of them, they would show me their wonderful, these men were absolutely phenomenal in their artwork. And I would talk with them. The one thing that they said, it was one thing. And I would talk with them in different, if I'm walking on the yard or whatever, just talking chill and say, hey, how you doing? And we would talk on things. Every single last one of them said, I didn't know what I had until I was forced to come here and be still.
Wow, awesome.
So that is the first of the thing, is to be still and still our minds.
Yes.
I know. And for me, I this is just my belief. I believe we as Westerners, we take meditate. There's so many types of meditation, Zen, mindfulness, heart activation, breathing, this and that. I believe that derives from the West. Because in the East, which is yoga, one with God, I believe meditation just means totally clearing that mind. You're not thinking of anything, because meditation is receiving from the universe. And if we're actively, okay, I want this and this, okay, let me meditate, I'm zen, whatever. If my mind is full while I'm meditating, how am I receiving? That's like if both of us are talking, how am I hearing what you're saying? I've got to be still and shut my mouth to hear what you say. So there's, so I always say, a lot of times I think when we as Westerners meditate, we're actually praying, because it takes discipline. It takes discipline to clear that, man. I'm sure, Reverend, the East. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Yes. I don't know, and I want to ask you, with meditation, are there various forms of meditation, or the primary one is yoga, being one with God?
Yes. That's exactly the goal. We know from our university that with Dr. Masters, he was saying, yoga actually means union of mind, body, and spirit. And that's why even without the poses of the physical exercises of yoga in University of Metaphysics, we consider meditation, even if it's just sitting down, as as some form of yoga because it's just the union of mind, body, and spirit connection. So thank you so much for clarifying that, Mom. And I think that the inmates that you talked to where you gave this lecture, they truly benefited from what you just said because you spoke of it in such a way that really reached out to them and be able to practice in their own lives, especially in their day-to-day activities in that space. So thank you for doing it. I'm very sure that a lot of them, yeah.
Bless your heart. I just have to say that no, it was the inmates that taught me. I wasn't doing a lecture. I worked in the prison, and it was by talking to them, sharing dialogue with them. They taught me. Yes,
Wow.
yes. I have to give props where props is due. Those inmates taught me that hey, what they one thing they learned when they were able to learn how gorgeous, how beautiful they are is when they were forced to be still in that cell.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And then
Thank you
meditation,
so much.
walking. I meditate when I'm walking. I mean, it doesn't always have to be sitting with our eyes closed and our hands, doing the different positions. Walking and I mean, just so many ways to meditate. But it's just clearing, being empty of our mind.
Yes. And when you spoke about the 10 bodies earlier, are you referring to a Kundalini yoga practice? Because in our Kundalini yoga classes, they always talk about the 10 bodies. So
Yeah.
is that the same? Oh,
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
10
I'm
plus one.
yeah. Thank you for sharing it, Mom. I love the Kundalini yoga practice, especially the chanting portion of it. It really helps me clear my mind and focus it. So anyway, Jen's back. So I was just telling our audience earlier about Mom trying to, uh, go deeply into our hearts and being able to distinguish our own voice from whatever it is that we're hearing from the outside. And before Jen was out to take care of the dog barking, which is amazing. One of the things that Dr. Masters was sharing to us, especially in the beginning of the bachelor's degree, is this. Although we can actually get into a lot of technical terms when it comes to mysticism and metaphysics, Dr. Masters wanted the graduates of University of Metaphysics to be able to display in their own lives that the quality of their personal lives, first and foremost, was actually benefiting from their own practices, and then be able to make an impact in their professional aspect as if you have all the spiritual tools, all these metaphysical tools, how is it making your life better? And with the way things have moved for you, Jen, I know that you have so much to share about the value of practical mysticism and metaphysics and the spiritual tools that you shared. So please go ahead, and you want to learn from you. Jen, you're on mute.
How does it get any better than this? I'm on mute. You have to laugh. I was thinking about everything, with what just happened. It's such a great opportunity because it's not in the moments where we get to sit and be on camera and look cute and say things that are hopefully meaningful to people. It's in the moments where stuff happens in life where you get to see, oh, how do I handle that? How do I reconnect and recenter, and reground ourselves? And it was funny, as I was walking back to situate myself, I was just thinking, oh, I don't know how, but this could be for the good. And you just got to laugh because I'm sure whatever Anita shared in this moment was exactly what the audience was meant to receive. And I think that's one of the things that the more spiritual tools we use and the more we deepen our practice, the greater our ability to be resilient. Whether we're talking about COVID or an unexpected interruption or whatever it might be, this is terrible to admit. I can't even believe I'm going to share this story. I was doing years and years ago when I first started doing, hosting things at a consulting company over 10 years ago. At the time, my brother-in-law at the time lived with us, and he was trying to get into the house, and I was in the middle of a show. And let's just say that was very early on in my spiritual development, and I lost it. It was not pretty. I did what I like to call the red mist. So I talk about this in the show that I'm a recovering jerk. So I want to be very clear that, life is going to happen. It's our choice to respond rather than react that defines who we are as human beings. And that time gets shorter and shorter and shorter. So instead of being angry or upset or reactive for hours, days, weeks, years, it literally becomes 5 seconds and you get to shift back. So I just want to highlight that because I just saw that as a learning opportunity for myself, going, great, what was the lesson and how is this for the good? Now, to tie it back, it's funny, I'm going to say something different than I initially had anticipated, which is maybe why it was for the good. But the first thing I want to share is, does anybody know the chant, Namye Ho Renge Kyo?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, I love that. I was just thinking about that. What you just shared, Dr. Anita, I was thinking about that. That's one of my oldest and favorite techniques, is to sit facing a white wall and chant Namye Ho Renge Kyo, Namye Ho Renge Kyo. And one of the things that was taught to me when I started doing this chant is to visualize from my heart my deepest desires being projected onto the wall. And simultaneously, as much time as I spend chanting for something I personally desire, I spend equal amounts of time chanting for something that somebody else needs. It could be health, prosperity, their soulmate, whatever it is. So for me, that's one of the keys to having sustenance, happiness, and bliss in life, is balancing what you want with what other people want, and making sure that you're asking for both, not just desiring to receive for the self alone. And my teacher, Michael Beckwith, taught me also to say, I'll sit with my mala beads, and typically about 108 times every day, I'll say, God is the source of my supply. And I'll go through 108 times, so that way I never forget to go back to the Christ consciousness. Everything is provided for. All of our needs are met. And so by saying it out loud, God is the source of my supply, God is the source of my supply, I'm never wrongly assuming that it comes from me, because when we assume that physical wealth comes from the material world, we're giving ourselves only 1% of all of the happiness, sustenance, prosperity, joy we could experience. When we realize and we plug into the light that's all around us, to the 99% of the real reality, which is endless bliss and happiness, then we get to have it all. But sometimes we become so fixated on the 1% material plane that that's how the devil, Satan, our ego gets us, is to focus on getting a little itty bitty bit of happiness over here, when in reality, everything we've ever wanted is available. It's up to us to ask for it.
Yes. Thank you for sharing it, Jen, because one of the things that I truly admire about what you're doing, how you're living your life, and how you're actually balancing different things in your life. You know, when we started the show, I was asked to submit a proposal, how things are going to be. And one of the things that I put there as an intention is to put the awareness that people, planet, and profit should come together. And one of the things that I like about your work is that you're building schools in less fortunate cities. And it's something that, one of the things that I had to learn from spiritual economics was that, you know, it's okay to desire to have more wealth, as long as in that particular desire of having more wealth, it's also your intention to allot a portion of your income to empowerment, to spirituality. And then at the same time, to devote a portion of that income into giving back to the community, especially if that particular community, you see a lot of promise in them, but they just need, they just need help, especially with education. Please tell us more about it.
Thank you, Reverend. It's one of my greatest passions. This is the cool thing of everything exists in inquiry. If we just ask ourselves questions, we ask one another questions, then we listen deeply, that's where life unfolds. And back in about 2011, I went to Cambodia to look at building a school there, and I'd read the book at the time, Half the Sky, by Nicholas Kristof and his wife, that said that women hold up half the sky. And they said one of the greatest ways to help both men and women around the world is to help build schools. So for as little as $30,000, you, by fundraising or donating, can build a school in a different area. And I went to Cambodia to build a school, and I went and I met with the gentleman who I was going to give the money to. And something felt off. I saw the school, I saw the kids, I loved the people, but something just didn't feel right. And I thought, how am I ever going to trust that somebody I give $30,000 to is going to build a school? So I gave up on it. I gave up on that dream until about July of 2016. I was in a program with about 100 world leaders. We all gathered together every 6 weeks in a thought leadership discussion. And the person who was facilitating this discussion, Reverend Al, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, in Georgia, a really amazing guy, and he facilitated an inquiry on what matters to you. That was it. That was the only question that was asked. What matters to you? And the partner that I was assigned was this young kid. He was probably 20 years old, maybe in his late teens. And so he does the assignment. He turns to me and he asks, what really matters to you? And in that moment, I said, building schools. And he said, great. What are you doing about it? And I said, I gave up on that dream a long time ago. I said, I just don't see how it can happen. He said, I want you to share right here, right now, that that's your dream. And I guarantee you, somebody in this room will be able to help. So in front of a room of 100 of my peers, I raised my hand and they said, okay, what really matters to you? And I said, building schools, but I don't know how. And in that moment, a woman raised her hand and she said, I have the perfect introduction for you. Call Skylar at Build on Monday and he'll help you build your first school. And less than a year later, I built my first school with my parents in Nepal.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing it. It's really wonderful, Jen, because one of the things that I want to share to our viewers, especially, the concept of profit or money is something that's misunderstood for the majority. And that's why I like a lot of teachers who guest on the show and they also have a positive attitude towards money, because that's one of the things that Dr. Masters wanted a lot of his graduates to understand. Because one of the things that's truly amazing about you, Jen, first you built a business, and having built a business in one of my spiritual communities, one of the best ways to receive good karma is to hire people, give them jobs, because in giving people jobs, you raise their human dignity. And when you're able to pay just wages, then you're also giving dignity for their human labor. And at the same time, you, in the process of receiving more, you're in a better psychological space to receive it. You're not creating some form of neurosis because you know that you're doing something good for the business, whatever that is. And then another component that you added to is you building something for the community, especially you went to Senegal, that's not even in the States. So that's really incredible work. And it's something that I want to share with most of our metaphysical leaders right now, because here in the Philippines, a lot of people pride themselves talking about metaphysics and how they know the laws of the universe and they can manifest. But one thing that, one of the things that I think you should challenge yourself doing, especially if you pride yourself with having all these metaphysical tools, is what are you actually doing with that incredible power that you have? Because you can demonstrate so much by the law of attraction with all the things that you know, but it's another thing to demonstrate for yourself and then encourage, do something for the community with it. And at the same time, people are encouraged by your light, by whatever actions that you're doing, to do the same thing. And the amazing thing about you, Jen, is that you don't preach to people that this is what they're supposed to do. They're just excited to do something because you're modeling it for us. So thank you for that. And I trust that you'll have more people to actually help you build your school, especially where, we're on air right now. I mean, we're in the digital platform, and I know that people are watching or they will catch up with us later. And also, Mom, I want to thank you for, doing incredible work, especially for raising awareness about the value of mental and emotional health so that we can prevent suicides. And is there anything else that you'd like to promote, Jen and Mom?
Go right ahead, Anita.
Oh, no, the only thing I just want to just say is for us to, learn to take it easy, learn to be happy. I know growing up, it was one of those things they say never be content. I disagree. Learn to be content where we are as we progress, and learn as far as spirituality. I would say lighten up. Yeshua says you reach it as a child, and not immature, but being light and airy, and the innocence of not worrying or having to explain so much. But yeah, just for us to lighten up. It's okay if you want to see the world through rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
It's okay if you decide you want to dance and sing and be not just that surface happy, but that fulfillment happy, where even when challenges do come for our soul's evolution, that we're still able to maintain that peace. And the way we maintain that peace is not through the intellectual adulthood of us. It's reaching that little girl, that little boy inside of us, and saying, yeah, I can have fun. Continue to skip and run and romp and roam and be. Just
Yeah.
be.
Thank you so much for that, Mom. And definitely, I'm going to do more of it. And there's just something about my wiring in my brain where, I want to lighten up, but there's that competitive aspect of me, like, that wants to, measure things. I don't know. But it's something that I'm working on. And is there,
That's okay. That's the Fibonacci sequence. So I mean, like the plants, they're doing like the plants. They're measured. Okay, well I did 2, so now I know I need to grow 3. Okay, now I grew 3, so now I need to grow 5. So this, right? That's beautiful.
yeah. But yeah, of course, that's very important. And like what my professors in college here in Miriam were telling us, sometimes you just really have to spend 30 minutes to an hour doing something that's really not being measured, just really getting your childish, playful nature out. And that's why I love Kundalini Yoga, because, that aspect of me that's not really being measured comes up with Kundalini Yoga. And Jen, is there something else that you'd like us to promote? Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, let me say to you, Reverend, and to what Anita just shared, dance. I spend a lot of time talking to my inner children of all ages, my 6-year-old self, my 13-year-old self, and they all have one thing in common. They love to dance. So if you're feeling stuck in your head, because I tend to err on the side of being more logical and figuring things out, just dance. Dance like nobody's looking. Dance while people are looking. Who cares? Just go out there and dance. And it's the quickest way to get out of your head. So that's been one of the things I've taken on during this time of COVID, is dancing at least once a day for 10 minutes just to let go. So highly recommend that. And if anybody ever does want to join me in building a school, my intention is to build a school every other year for the rest of my life. So end of 2021, we'll be building in Malawi. And it's, speaking of dance, that's the cool thing about being in Senegal, being in Nepal. You get a chance to see that people, the culture is built around dancing, self-expression, and singing. So if that would ever interest you, email me at getyourselfthejob@gmail.com. Again, that's getyourselfthejob@gmail.com. Would love to invite you or your friends to join us for that, or I can put you in touch with the people at Build On to build your own school wherever you want to do it in the world. It's really an incredible experience. So thank you to everybody. Really appreciate the time here, Rev Reg. If you want to follow me, at Jen Hill Speaker is my Instagram and my Twitter, or you can go to 101spiritualtools.com. So deeply grateful for this time we've all spent together, and Satnam, everyone.
Yes, Satnam.
Yeah, I'm going to be reaching out to you because I'm very, very, very interested in that school idea. I love that. I absolutely
love that. Please. It's amazing. I'd love to have you be there.
Get yourself a job. What?
Getyourselfthejob@gmail.com.
I'm gonna be, yeah, 'cause I'd love to talk with you more about that. Absolutely.
Thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you to everybody. Happy New Year. Oh, and try futureme.org. Quick side note, guys. I just remembered I meant to share this. I love doing this. Every year before the end of the year, I send myself an email from the future. Go to futureme.org, and then you get an email from yourself a year later saying all the things you were intending, whether you're intention setting or goal setting. It's really just a fun exercise to do, to send yourself from the future.
Yeah, that's what I do. Write a letter. As a matter of fact, the
Yeah.
December 31st or January 1st, I'll be opening up the letter that I wrote last year.
Exactly. I
Wow.
love that.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
And if I can share with people, I mean, if they'd like to get in touch with me or follow me, I'm
Yeah.
on Facebook at just DRANITAC.com, and that's my Facebook page. I just want to throw that out, Reverend Reg. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine, Mom. Ralph, please flash the AOB. All right. So I want to thank our sponsors, Unity Philippines, Spiritual Center, Benedictine International School, especially when I was starting with the show, they were really a big help to me. And next, please. And Mom, please go ahead. I know you have a thing or two to say about the International Metaphysical Ministry.
Oh, that just International Metaphysical Ministries have just really, really been a tremendous blessing for me. I had always wanted to get my bachelor's, and I got my bachelor's. I knew my mother had already made her transition. I said, Mama, I know it's unorthodox. Over here's my bachelor for you. When I walked off that stage and got my bachelor's, then then Reverend Lynn Exley with helping with the thesis and then getting the dissertation. I love International Metaphysical Ministries and Dr. Paul Leon Masters' teaching is just absolutely, it's just one with me. So I can't say enough about International Metaphysical Ministries, University of Sedona, University of Metaphysics. Reverend Lynn Williams, I mean, actually Michelle, oh my God, oh Lord, all the people, and they're so, I just love them. They are my family, just my family.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And the next one, please. Yes, and you want to invite everyone to visit www.universityofmetaphysics.com. Take advantage of the scholarship because if you want to get a college degree, a university degree rather, you can take advantage of it and you can actually pay $90 down payment and then $25 for the installment for 48 months, especially a lot of people are on a budget. And I was actually one of those people who benefited from the scholarship. I
Yeah.
was juggling work and studying at the same time, and I'm very happy that I took advantage of it. So you're all welcome to see it. Next. So of course I have all your materials here, Mom. Thank you. Dr. Diana Vihuni, Dr. Cindy Palos, my friend Anthony Benton Brown, Jen, your books here, Reverend Adam Hayden, Perspective Metaphysics, Dr. Stephen J. Casmina, Dr. Kathleen Riley, whom I got to know through Jen, and at the same time, uh, of course, Tina Bring Teapots, who was here teaching us about marketing. So for those of you who would like to get your brand in a better, visibility, I encourage everyone to get in touch with Tina and, of course, Dr. Cindy Palos. So that's all for tonight. And, I just want to sum up what Jennifer Hill and Dr. Powell was talking about earlier. Both of them actually came from situations where they can feel limited and then just be eaten up by whatever situation they had during this 2020. It's a very interesting year for all of us, but both of them came out unscathed, even better, stronger. With Jen, she was able to, get herself literally stronger out of the experience. So thank you so much for the amazing work that both of you did. And I hope that our viewers are inspired by their stories because I am personally inspired by the things that they have achieved, especially this year. And I encourage all of you to follow them. You know, I think it's so important now in the digital world to be in touch with people whom we'd like to imbibe their consciousness, their energy. And Mom, I want to thank you for always being so welcoming to everyone. You always light up the room. And Jen, I love watching your shows with Brandon, so keep it up. And I also want to thank Ralph, Dean, and also my co-producer, Sir Rolly and Sir Charlie, V81 Radio Management. Thank you so much. I'm Reverend Reg, and I'm your metaphysical host for V81 Radio. And remember, you're the magic you've been waiting for.
Consistently delivering the very best in metaphysics. Here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Till next time, only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Walang kasing saya ang Paskong Pinoy. Dumaan man ang problema at pandemya, kayang-kayang lampasan. Basta't nagdadamayan at nagmamahalan.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Tuloy na tuloy pa rin ang Pasko dito sa V81 Radio, Manila.
Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan. Kahit nasaan ka man ito'y mapapakinggan.